My name is Brianna Woodson, and I will be discussing 5 points from A Framework for Understanding Poverty by Ruby K. Payne. She gives a wonderful explanation of what children from a poverty background have to go through, the different challenges that they face, and how we as educators can combat these and ensure that they succeed as students to the best of their ability. The first problem that she presented was this issue of language. There are two types of registers that most people use. There is the casual register and the formal register. So the casual register is more speech like. It's what you would usually use at home when talking to people and having a regular conversation. The formal register is what would be used when you are writing a paper or in a corporate setting. The issue is most children in poverty do not have enough exposure to hearing the formal register. Most of their speech and most of their talking is done through the casual register, and typically it doesn't hold a very large vocabulary. So when they come into class and they are told to write essays in a formal register, it is very hard for them to switch and be able to write in a formal register when they haven't had enough exposure to this. So some possible solutions to this is to help guide children into expressing their ideas onto paper first by using the casual register first. Have them write out their essays and their papers, expressing themselves and their ideas like they're having a conversation. And then carefully instruct and guide them on translating their casual register paper into a more formal register. Also, have students be used to hearing both the casual and the formal register by teaching them both and explaining the different nuances to each register, and make sure that they are aware when you are using casual and using formal register. Lastly, explain to the students that just as different sports have different rules and guidelines, so do the two registers, and being able to use the two registers is very, very important. The second issue that she talked about that I'm going to be discussing are the hidden rules of the social classes. So there are hidden rules in each social class that dictate the approaches that people take when making decisions. The poverty class rotates around relationships. The middle class rotates around achievements, what you've done in the past, what you are doing, and what you are going to do. And the wealthier class rotates around connections, who you know, and what businesses and companies you are connected with. If children from a poverty household do not learn the rules of the middle class, they will never advance upwards. Now, this is because, and I'm going to be using a quote from Ruby Payne that sums this up very beautifully. She says, "The hidden rules are important because they impact relationships. One of the key issues in making the transition from poverty to middle class or middle class to wealth is to develop bridging social capital. In other words, developing relationships with different people from you. When hidden rules are broken, offense is frequently taken, and then the relationship doesn't get a chance to develop. So, from here, we see that if children from poverty are not taught the rules of the middle class, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to advance upwards because they will not know how to get along with people from the different classes. So, the solutions to this include to be aware, first of all, of your students and the different social rules that they follow in the classes that they are from. And then, secondly, teach the rules of the middle class to the children as possible tools that they can learn. Most of these students will not willingly take these on if you try to force these upon them. So teach it in a way that they know that these are tools that they can access and will help them advance. And then also look for a variety of solutions to different problems. The third issue we're going to talk about is generational poverty. Generational poverty is poverty that has impacted at least two generations. The side effects of these include exposure to frequent violence, food insecurity, regular contact with those involved in addictions, and also periodic homelessness. So, people from poverty often grow up without a proper understanding of more advanced handling of money. This is because in their mind they do not have a need to handle money in a more advanced way. When they get a little extra money, it's not in their mind to save up. Usually, they want to spend this on how to make their lives a little more pleasurable in that moment. Additionally, people in poverty have to move frequently, so there is often a poor understanding of organization and dedicated space, especially in the home. There is not much need to designate certain bedrooms or cupboards for certain things. So, organization is not in their mindset readily. And then lastly, the family unit for most families in poverty are often very, very complex and centered around the mother. Many times, the mother has had several sexual relationships and this may result or may not result in having kids from different fathers. More often than not, the children will have different parents and siblings from different parents as well. So, the way to combat this and break the cycle of generational poverty is through education. This is the only way that the children will ever step out of poverty, and both the students and the teachers must understand this. School is the only place that the children from poverty will learn the rules of the middle class. And as we talked about beforehand, this goes hand in hand with advancing socially. Um, the issue 4 is a lack of role models and emotional resources. So many children in poverty are forced to have adult responsibilities and stresses, and it robs them of the ability to experience a proper childhood and adolescent stage. This poses a really, really big threat to their emotional development. So the way that we combat this is to have teachers encourage them to create solid support systems, get them connected with adults that could be good role models, and make sure that they establish long-lasting relationships. The last problem is hindered brain development. Because most of these children will grow up having to choose between necessities, this is an added stress that the children from the other two social classes do not have to experience. Additionally, many of these children do not have access to healthy meals and inhibits their intake of sufficient nutrients. This impacts, of course, their overall physical growth, and that will in turn inhibit their brain development. So, because of all of these, we want to make sure that we are teaching children how to properly plan. Basically, give them the skills that they should be taught at home, but they are not being taught at home. Teach them how to evaluate and plan and set up goals for themselves that will help them succeed in life. Also, children from lower class income families usually tend to act up a bit more, and proper behavior must be taught to these children as well. Teach them what things are acceptable and are not acceptable. I want to close with a verse that says, train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. This comes from Proverbs 22:6. As educators, it is our job to make sure that children succeed academically, but also that they grow up having experienced things that they may not have experienced at home. We want to make sure that when they leave school, they are mature both mentally, academically. If we can, we will also do what we can to help them physically, but we need to make sure that we are striving to make sure that our children leave our classrooms leaving well rounded in the things that we have taught them.